Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Career Booster Forum 2023. I am pleased to introduce the panelists for this forum. Holly Bartosek is the supervisor for the ESL and Link program for Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board, or for short HWCDSB. Holly has many years of experience instructing ESL and Link classes and uses her knowledge of PBLA, CLBs, and classroom engagement to advance the program. Along with the administration team, Holly trains staff, completes staffing, and liaises with the ministry representatives to ensure the program is the best it can be. Holly and her team strive to provide a comfortable and safe environment for both staff and students. As a lead instructor, Melita Rakela brings over 30 years of experience in the ESL and Link sector for the HWCDSB. She has been active in curriculum writing, assessor in service training, PBLA guru assisting instructors on the LMS system, and most recently, host, moderator of the TESL Dialogue, serving the community and assisting new TESL practicums from various educational venues. Her motto: to help those whom we serve. Mitra Nishad is the manager of the YMCA Language Assessment and Referral Centers in the City of Toronto. She is a certified language assessor and is passionate about her job and serving the community. Mitra hosts multiple community partnership committee meetings throughout the year with language training service providers, reporting valuable data, aiding in the planning and organization of current and future language classes. She has also presented at multiple Metropolis Canada and Americas conferences, in addition to the Council of Educators of Toronto in recent years. As manager, Liberal Arts, English for Academic Purposes, EAP, at Georgian College, Corinne Whitney has taught and supported students for over 20 years. Her role managing English language studies at Georgian today encompasses more than the EAP program. Corinne has led workforce development projects with the Panamanian and Mexican governments, as well as Georgian international partners across the world. As a hiring manager, she has seen a shift in competencies and skill sets required today, and will provide some insight on how to stand out in the crowd. I would like to invite the first panelist to start their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Reza. Hi, everyone. My name is Melita Rakela, and Holly and I are here representing St. Charles with the Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board. At present, we are hiring, so get yourself those questions, write them down, and ask the nitty-gritty things you need to know about working with us. We are here to reveal all. Just a little bit of information about us. We are in the greater Hamilton. We have what we call 4 campuses, providing many programs. Here are just a few of them. We have our ESL and Link classes, citizenship, IELTS, English for everyday living, and our CNC for our little people, care for newcomer children. Pilot has been launched, and we recently invited visitors, at which point we assess them. There's a small fee to attend our ESL classes, and the program has been successful on all levels. What do we expect from potential candidates? TESL Ontario certified to instruct English as a second language according to the Canadian language benchmarks. This is pretty dry stuff, but it's very important that you understand that and that you have it. Familiarity of PBLA, the portfolio-based language assessment. We do evaluate the student learning outcomes on an ongoing basis and engage in accurate St. Charles reporting processes. Holly and I work as a tag team, and we welcome our new hires. We have onboarding, and help is always available. You're not alone in the program. What we provide to qualified job seekers. The Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board is an equal opportunity employer that is committed to inclusive, barrier-free recruitment and selection process. Competitive wages. Write this down. You want to know how much money you're going to get if you get hired. PD hours, unionized environment. Ask us about it. What does that mean? How does that help you? We have face-to-face classes and our online evening classes as well. As I said before, assistance for new hires with PBLA and program maintenance. This is our contact information. Holly's is here as well. Holly Bartosik at Hamilton Wentworth Catholic District School Board.ca. Keep those questions handy. You're going to have time to ask. And we thank you so much. And over to you, Mitra.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Okay, so like Melissa, I'm also here to discuss with you new opportunities and new horizons for you and all ESL teachers in the sector. We believe that our journey matters. And the journey also includes the pre-enrollment in language training programs. And what that means is that when working with newcomers and immigrants, it's very important to introduce them to CLARS centers to help them, give them information about government-funded language learning pathways. I'm also going to talk a little bit about CLARS, our program, and what the job of assessors entail. The federal government partnered with the YMCA of Greater Toronto back in 1992. And the aim was to support the language learning needs of immigrants arriving in Canada and residing in Toronto. In 2014, Coordinated Language Assessment and Referral System was born. And it was the result from a collaboration from the federal government, provincial government, as well as the members of the language assessment and training sector. And the goal was to develop standardized protocols for language assessment and referral provision. As we all know, in 2022, the government of Canada introduced its multi-year plan to support immigration to Canada. And we all started planning and basically working on the same vision, which was how to support these newcomers who will knock at our doors very soon. Every year at our CLARS Center, we assess more than 30,000 immigrants to Canada who are here to improve their language skills or learn a new language. And they must undergo an assessment at one of our CLARS centers. Our assessors are responsible for administering the assessment tool according to the training principles and standards that are already in place, and refer the learners, immigrants, and clients to other services available to them out there in the community, which includes language learning classes, services for newcomers to Canada, and also employment services. We always remind our clients that an assessment is simply a tool that measures the English and French language skills of our learners. So it's not a test that you may fail or pass. Language assessment or language assessments and government-funded language trainings are offered at no cost to our learners and clients. In addition to assess clients' language skills and refer them to services available to them at no cost out in the community, we convene community partnership meetings throughout the year and invite service providers who are involved in the language training process. And we discuss the needs and gaps that are out there in the sector and how to tackle our problems. We also share our success stories and challenges and best practices. We are also very much involved in the community by participating in different events and activities in the city of Toronto. On this slide, we have a screenshot of the CLARS protocol, and which demonstrates that the journey of a newcomer who has a desire to improve her or his language skills starts from knocking at our doors, and then with scheduling an appointment, and at the end, basically be enrolled in one of the language training programs in the city of Toronto. Now, what do you need to know? As Holly said, this is dry stuff, but it's important for everyone to know. Your qualities and qualifications matter. What we'll look is for professional resume. TESL Ontario accreditation is mandatory for the recruitment for the clients that we recruit. Experience teaching ESL to adults, 300 hours minimum is mandatory. Post-secondary education in a related field. Excellent interview communications and assessment skills. Also flexibility regarding assigned work hours, because we operate on weekends, in the evenings, and we assess newly arrived refugee clients and learners and immigrants at hotels at itinerant locations. Competency in accountability, relationship building, teamwork is very important. There are strong assets as well. CLB bootcamp certificate, knowledge of the settlement sector. We need to know what is out there for our learners, for our clients and immigrants. And proficiency in a second language is a strong asset as well. Currently, our staff speak more than 25 languages. Technology is also very important. Proficiency with computer applications, including Microsoft Office applications, internet search engines, Teams, and Zoom, because these applications facilitate assessors maintaining accurate files in different databases that we work on, including HARTS. YMCA Clark Center currently has assistive devices to remove barriers for our newcomers, immigrants, and the vulnerable community, including the deaf, the blind, and those who need a different access to our services. We have purchased with the support from the government, cursor software, CCTV, CPAN, Explorer 12, and Enabler joystick, and they are available at all of our assessment sites. So if the question is, how do I prepare myself? Learn about the history and current programs offered at YMCA as your employer, as well as in the settlement sector. What's going on there? What is it? How can we support newcomers in their settlement journey in the new country? Familiarize yourself with the role of the Canadian language benchmarks in assessment by completing a CLB bootcamp certificate. And also understand the value of both the assessment and non-assessment roles of the position. Be the one who makes the difference. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I think I stop sharing and pass it on to Corinne.
Thank you, Reza, for the introduction. I am the manager of English for Academic Purposes, or English Language Studies, at Georgian College. And I thought the approach I would take today, we'll talk a little bit about, interviewing at a college or a public institution, but I wanted to take the approach of sort of a top 10 list of, as you know, I'm sitting in an interview, what sort of stands out for me with applicants for whether it's a non-full-time role, such as partial load, which is what Georgian hires in our language program mostly, or a full-time role. So I'll start by a gentleman that resonates for me. I remember early in my teaching career, Parker J. Palmer wrote a book called Courage to Teach. And I think, the greatest thing or the greatest advice I could give you is, teaching is really a blend of technique, but it also is about, who you are and your own personal identity. So he says in this book that good teaching cannot be reduced to technique. Good teaching comes from identity and integrity of the teacher. So let's talk a little bit about what that means to me. So number 10, clearly every institution, and as you can see, my colleagues here also, we start at the qualifications, but that really is one facet for us. At the college, we of course look for a university degree, most often in linguistics, not always strictly in linguistics, but TESL. And then, of course, TESL Ontario. We also accept TESL Canada, Standard 2, or equivalent CELTA and Delta. And I've related these back to the 21st century skills because we talk about that a lot in the classroom. So, when we look at somebody who has a degree, we can, of course, make assumptions like there's a lot of self-directed learning, hopefully some critical thinking if you've passed your degree program. Number 9, I like to speak to a person's citizenship, how they collaborate, and again, the type of self-directed learning they take personally. So what is your post-secondary experience in terms of instruction? Because of course you're applying to a post-secondary institution to teach. We look at whether an individual has had international experience, because a majority of our students are from other areas of the globe. Community experience, and this actually, since I last presented this, has taken on new meaning that a lot of colleges now are looking at, you know, the work you're doing in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. How are you involved in truth and reconciliation? So what is your lived experience? And these are questions that will arise in your interview. And again, you know, what has shaped you? What are your philosophies and core values? And because it's a big part of what you bring to the classroom. Number 8, again, you know, sort of that inclusive mindset speaks to collaboration, your citizenship again, and communication. And when I talk about this, it's your collaboration with the community, it's your collaboration with other colleagues. What are you doing in the industry that we're all involved in? You know, like, are you on different boards? Are you participating in program advisory committees? What extra work are you doing that, you know, speaks to the work that will help to move really the world forward a little bit, you know, social, the whole social justice piece. I always ramble when I get into this part because it's really important to me. Then I always look at sort of a person's interpersonal, I name it interpersonal prowess, their communication skills, their critical thinking. Are they, you know, can they demonstrate examples where they've been empathetic? As many of you know, that is so key to the learners that we're dealing with. They come from, you know, some of them come from trauma backgrounds, and, you know, they have different commitments now. The learners we were working with 20 years ago are not the learners we're working with today. They have other commitments. They have bigger financial strain. A lot of them are here with their families. They're, you know, so again, you know, being a very active listener, being self-aware and aware of the journeys that our students might bring to the classrooms. I look for people, or our team looks for people that are very relationship centered and receptive to feedback. And this comes out in an interview with situational questions. The college is famous for those, you know, questions that will give you a scenario and what would your response be to that scenario. Number 6 for me, creative communication. I would, you know, say to you, you know, be familiar with universal design for learning practices, you know, having that whole access piece and awareness of the access piece, working, you know, with assistive technology. I heard that earlier. That's key as well. How is your learning or the curriculum that you create authentic and connected to experiences that would resonate with your learner? You know, we have recently introduced community service learning, even in our foundational levels, and the students are going out to help with Habitat for Humanity, and they go to the Restore and volunteer as part of the curriculum. And that, you know, creates such good citizens as well as integrates them with the community. So if you can demonstrate a lesson plan, which you often have to do for interviews at a college, that, you know, sets up the learner with authentic opportunities, and that will really stand out in an interview. Number 5, mad digital skills. Digital literacy goes way beyond PowerPoints now, as I present with a PowerPoint, but oftentimes when you are invited to a college interview, you will be asked to do a 5 or 6 minute lesson plan. And I would say to you, you know, use the platforms that you know, that Socrative, Flipgrid is another one. I recently taught a developing leadership course. Flipgrid is a great tool and, you know, gives students a different way. So again, you know, being aware of active and passive use of technology, you know, and knowing when it makes sense for the student and the learning. And I say this to you because the other layer to the use of technology in the classroom is understanding that all your students may not have access to robust online, robust computer, robust technology. And they may not also have the skills to use the technology. So that's being aware of when it makes sense for your students. Number 4, forwards thinking. Again, I spoke a little bit about being involved in the community, but having that growth mindset in being an innovator. How have you innovated in the English language sector? We're a highly collaborative team. So, giving examples of when you've shared with other faculty or other teachers that you've worked with, how you've worked within a program to grow, whether it's the curriculum or grow student engagement. That's sort of where I look to for growth mindset. Are you a problem solver? And then always, and I think that's sometimes inherent to who we are as ESL instructors, being a lifelong learner and always being a professional development pro is what I call it. Number 3 for me, I call it that extra something. I have a fabulous team here, and we are now, we employ faculty, and in the classroom, there are also now technologists because it is such a digital world. So, being able to demonstrate in your interview, coming in with a really positive mindset, that you are supportive, responsive, and flexible, being able to convey that in an interview is really important. And, I know we've all worked with learners or will work with learners who really require a lot, and just being able to persevere and be engaged with our learners. So passion is something that resonates for us in an interview, and it speaks to your citizenship. Being an awakener and not just a teacher, being excited about what you do. And that comes across in every interview for every full-time person. When I've participated on the panel, they come in just ready to, ready to, I don't know what the word is, ready to just be the right person for the position. So, being able to convey that passion in the interview. And then everything that you do, I would say to you, should emanate from what does this mean for our students? How will these changes, affect our students? If we do this, how will this impact our students? So that's my top 10 list for what would make somebody stand out for me at Georgian at an interview.
Thank you very much, Holly, Raquela, Mitra, and Corinne for your very informative presentations. On this slide, everyone, I have the panelists' names, place of work, and email addresses. You can take a picture of this slide or quickly jot down their email addresses just in case you have any questions for the panelists and you would like to get in touch with them at a later time. Also, in a few seconds, we will be able to get the questions. So if you have any questions for any of the panelists, please put them in the Q&A box for us. I'm going to stop sharing this and then we can answer questions.
Okay, so we do have a few questions. The first one comes from Christine Hope. So is the CLAR's test administered online or in person?
Thank you, Anta. I think that's for me. The test is administered both online and in person at all of our locations.
Okay, so there is one from an anonymous attendee. So the question is, as a member of the queer community, I would be very reluctant to work for a Catholic organization. Can you address this concern?
Absolutely. Okay, so first off, I just want to begin by saying that I'm sorry this person feels that way about the organization and that they feel the reluctance to not apply. As an organization, we're not concerned with sexual orientation or gender identity at all. We actually encourage and celebrate many different religions and cultures at St. Charles, as the 100% of our students are from different religions and backgrounds, and we celebrate that daily. We also have anti-harassment and discrimination policies, and we encourage diversity at the Catholic School Board.
And thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And that we have here in the Q&A at the moment. I'm not sure if the panelists have questions for each other.
Corinne, I would be interested to know what is the pay rate or the pay scale that the college provides upon hiring?
Pay scale varies depending on the individual. I would say full-time faculty, so full-time faculty is assessed on their credentials, their past experience. So there's a range, and I feel like full-time faculty starts at about 80,000. And then right now in our program, we have 4 full-time faculty. With the partial load faculty, it's a little bit different. Again, it's the same rating system, years of employment. They sort of extrapolate a little bit if you haven't taught in the post-secondary arena, and then your credentials. And I would say the average salary hourly rate at the college would $60 to $80 an hour. But with partial load, you're only paid for your teaching hours. So that factored in is your teaching, or so your prep and your assessment.
So with this partial load, Corinne, are there any benefits that are provided by the college? Is there a pension plan that is so important that people seem to always, forget? You need a pension plan of some sort, right?
Yeah, most individuals aim for the partial load. So we have 3 categories of non-full-time. 1 to 6 hours is part-time, and that is just your part-time pay. You're paid, of course, the vacation pay. And then when you're in that partial load range, you're teaching 7 to 12 hours. And in that 7 to 12 hour range, benefits are included, participation in the pension plan. I think the greatest challenge with the partial load area is it's never a guaranteed thing, right? But the union has taken steps, like there's a partial load registry. So you register, which sort of gives you a bit of seniority as well. And then there's a 3rd category called sessional, but Georgian doesn't use the sessional. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I didn't realize that you had something in place. Appreciate it.
So there are 2 more questions that have just been added into the Q&A. This is for the whole panel. So can you please describe the hiring process? How many rounds of interviews are there? Is there a testing or portfolio submission requirement?
I can address ours first. The way it would work is usually for us, our instructors start off as supply instructors. So you would apply to our posting, which we do have up right now, and put your resume in and your cover letter to careers@hwcdsb.ca. Where it would go directly to human resources, and we would look through the resumes to see if the qualifications are met. And then we would call you in for an interview where you're asked 5 to 6 questions, and it's scored with a panel of individuals. And if you're a successful candidate, then you start on the supply list. From there, working supply hours, you can then apply for any permanent positions that come available in a posting, and then the same process would happen again.
I can go next. So for us, it's very similar to what Holly just described. Candidates who are interested in joining the Y and the program, they apply to the posting, and then we review the applications. We understand that certain qualifications are, as I mentioned earlier, not clear for applicants or candidates. And one of which is basically having the TESL Ontario certificate. So they may forget to, for example, indicate it on their application. They may indicate TESL Toronto, but not Ontario. And for all those reasons, we conduct a phone interview first to ensure we have all the information we need and the qualifications of the candidate. And then we proceed with the first interview and then the second interviews.
At the college, it depends on the role. So full-time faculty interviews are very, very formal. There is generally probably 2 layers of interviews. Definitely a master's to get into a pool to be interviewed. Those resumes are vetted first by HR for me, and then what HR has determined meets the requirements of the posting. And here's a point: when you're submitting resumes and your cover letter, follow that job posting. Use similar language in your cover letter and your resume. That is how you will be recognized to get into that interview pool. So we'll probably have a first screening, and then in the actual full-time faculty interview, it's probably a panel of 5 or 6 people, HR, the union, myself, the dean that I work for, and probably our business manager. You're asked to do a 5 to 8 minute lesson plan focused on, one skill. And then depending on how the first round goes, if there's a little bit of, the college uses a scoring system. So if you're within a certain range of points, we do a second round. If it's for the partial load, part-time pool, those are resumes that generally have come to me. Sometimes we advertise, but I have a lot of contact through other colleges that I work with. I'm on 2 program advisory committees. One of them is for TESL training at Sheridan. So the colleges talk a lot among themselves and share, really good candidates because of the way that we hire. A lot of times we'll have an extra section of language learners and we need to hire within a day or 2. So we go out to the pool that we have and people that we know, people who've done practicums with me to see if they're interested in teaching. And I would say at that point, we're not looking for a master's, but a master's certainly, the part-time, it's not as critical, but for full-time, definitely a master's.
So this is a master's in ESL?
No, we look at a master's in linguistics, my master's is a Bachelor of Education, so in international education. So I would say for the part-time positions, we're more flexible in the type of master's. I'm probably grandfathered in because I'm so old. But now I would say that they look more for TESL or something in linguistics for the full-time positions.
So we have a lot more questions rolling in. So I'm just going to get through a little bit more. This one. And surprisingly, actually, some of the questions that people had asked, you guys had answered. So just pretty cool. So the next one, could you kindly offer additional information regarding the verification of teaching hours? Would a letter of reference from the administrator be considered adequate for this purpose? This is, I'm assuming, to everybody.
Yeah, I'll just say there's no verification for us in terms of teaching hours. We look at credentials and experience, but there's no specific number we're looking for.
And in our case, when I was talking about the qualifications, I did indicate that we 30 hours teaching to ESL to adults is mandatory. And that's because the next step after the recruitment process is to receive the training on different assessment tools from a third-party organization, CCLB or Achieve, and that's a requirement for the third-party test developers, basically.
Okay. So the next question is, this is an everybody question. So what would be the 2 biggest challenges for new teachers upon hiring?
I can start. I think that's at the top of everybody's mind. I think one of the biggest challenges right now is the whole introduction last year of instruments like ChatGPT, artificial intelligence. I think it's we have a support service at the college that the language program managers called the Language Help Center. And it's really become such a challenge for the whole integrity of what we do. So, explaining to students and working with them to understand that it's a tool. I think it's something that we have to learn to embrace one way or another. So that's going to be something that you are really going to have to study up on how are you going to manage, how are you going to teach students to use the prompts, and how are you going to help them recognize that it's a tool to augment their voice, but not replace their voice. So all of those digital pieces are, for us at least, are a big challenge. And I think the second challenge is the new student. I talked about the layers that they bring to the classroom. In my day, it was young 18-year-old children, students who were coming for the first time, leaving their families. Now I have, individuals who have been through some really, horrific things, and they need so much more support, so much more empathy, and you have to be able to sort of again, like I say, it's just not about your technical skills. It's about, you holistically as a teacher. So how do you bring that to your students? That's and recognize in your students when they're struggling, and what services can you offer or refer them to? That's a big challenge in the classroom right now too.
If I could just add to that, what Corinne had said, our experience, and Holly can attest to it, we have a lot of literacy students and very low level students coming in who, as Corinne said, bring with them a wealth of knowledge but can't express themselves. So I think being an instructor for ESL is an evolving experience. You are like a chameleon, and to recognize the mental issues in the classrooms now as well. So we're struggling and hoping to make everyone's life a little bit better through the teaching of English, whether it's through digital literacy or just a kind word, because we really have a big load to carry these days.
All right. So there's a lot more questions coming in, which is great. So the next question, I'm curious. I would like to gather information on courses or programs around English language acquisition, which are not the standard, unique, special.
All right, I'll give you my example. One of the things that came to us over COVID is we really had to figure out how to diversify because numbers in our program fell, and I really was trying to find ways to keep faculty employed. So we moved into English for specific purposes fairly quickly, and have done teacher training in China. We also have done some online work, curriculum development for aviation managers. So there's a few things that we've done in that arena. And I would say to you, they really don't exist. Colleges in their workforce development teams create those things. So, if you come from a background, and I'll use aviation management as an example, and here's where the innovation piece comes in. How do you take what you know as a language teacher and incorporate your skills as an aviation manager to bring that to fruition? We weren't aviation managers, but we had the language skills, and so we actually helped them prepare for there's an exam that they have to write, ICAO, and so two of our faculty, it was just doing a lot of reading and taking the principles of language acquisition, and the content was, just the medium. It was the principles of language acquisition that moved them forward. So I don't think that learning or that teaching exists, but most people have created it on their own, or colleges. I can only speak for colleges.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. So are you using AI to scan resumes?
For us, we do not use AI. We have all the administrators go through the resumes and cover letters individually and look for the background that we need for hiring.
Okay. Same here for our program. We don't use AI.
Corinne, you?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think so, but I do know that there is a sort of a vetting, and that's why I gave you the advice that I did. I do know there is some vetting done at the HR level. Whether that's done with AI, I'm not sure.
We do have a few more items here. So the next one is, are there any combinations of qualifications that would be considered if someone doesn't have a master's degree to apply to the college?
You'd be considered for the part-time roles. And, I would also say to you this is, the ESL roles at the colleges are somewhat limited, and especially right now, because a lot of us are still coming out of that whole COVID piece. Our learners, are coming back. We've got a good fall intake. But look also at communications courses. A lot of our communications teachers are ESL certified teachers or OSELT teachers, and those that have their OSELT are the ones that teach communications. So look at the broader umbrella too, the liberal arts umbrella, apply to communications roles. I would say to you, for the part-time, a master's is not a requirement, but once you start looking at the full-time realm, then you're going to need your master's to instruct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are all the questions that we have. Is there anything else the panelists would like to add, or?
We are hiring, so please apply. Thank you.
Today, this concludes this session. Thank you so much, Riza, Holly, Melita, Kareen, and Mitra for taking the time to explain what's happening in your organization. And, I can say this is very, very informative. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for hosting this as well.